Hi, welcome to another episode of the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. The show is designed for you, the marketer or entrepreneur, who may be looking for more effective ways to connect better with audiences through the exciting world of visual storytelling. We will introduce you to inspiring experts from diverse industries that bring fresh perspectives on how to capture attention, build trust, emotional empathy, and last but not least, drive business results. Enjoy the show.
Before we dive into today's episode, let's spark your curiosity with more visual storytelling magic. Join thousands who have already subscribed to our 6-year visual storytelling newsletter. Discover exclusive insights and actionable tips to transform your stories today at newsletter.visualstorytell.com.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about VR? Well, in my case, I think about the metaverse NFT craze from 2 years ago. You all remember I covered this topic quite heavily on this show. Maybe it's video games or VR training. I had actually the experience of mentoring a startup in this space, focusing on training for flight technicians. Brands use VR in various other use cases from therapy, business collaboration, art, tourism, even healthcare. And just to kind of bring it to life, just imagine the ability to whisk your remote employees to an exotic tropical beach for a brainstorming session. Just imagine about the creative juices flowing all over. And all that even without buying expensive flying tickets or accommodations. So this whole VR opportunity really gives storytellers an amazing, richer world to create immersive visual authenticity. So to help me unpack this exciting topic, I am super excited to chat today with Dror Goldberg, General Manager of Foretell Reality, and his colleague, Jordan Gutt, Director of Operations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shlomi. It's great to be here.
So before we get started, just to kind of set the context about your backstory and how you got into VR.
Absolutely. So again, Shlomi, thanks for hosting us and nice to be here.
Yep.
I would like to share my personal story with a couple of slides, if you don't mind.
Sure, go for it.
And I find that when I reflected back on my career history, it was nice to see a pattern that connects my professional background to communication. On this slide, on the bottom, you see the companies that I worked at, from Converse Technology, which was a telecommunications software company. The flagship product was voicemail boxes, but
Yep.
I was there as a developer and later on as a product manager when the mobile revolution actually started. I remember that I wrote the code for an application that recognized what you said in order to bring you the relevant information, like what is the weather and what is the stock price of a certain stock. Later on, I find myself working at Nokia, which was a great company to work for, very cosmopolitan, as you know, Shlomi.
Yeah,
this is also where we met
exactly
for the first time. And I really connected with their motto back then, which is Nokia connecting people.
Yep.
Later on, I found myself at Samsung, heading a product management team over there. And in the past 4.5 years, I'm the general manager of Foretell Reality, which is a subsidiary of a parent company that is called the Glimpse Group.
Yep.
The reason that I put my personal history on that slide that shows also the history of remote communication is because a lot of what I've been involved in had to do with remote communication. Not going back all the way to smoke signals at 900 BC, but the human need to find solutions, how to connect with each other while not being present at the same space is something that is very long-lasting, as you can see on this slide. And the evolution of these technologies from the messengers to mail to phones and so forth advanced quite tremendously in the past century, even half a century, when we started using mobile phones with all the applications that are on top of that, video conferencing, and now we are at the virtual reality space. We'll elaborate on that much more. One thing that is interesting about this need of human need and all the technology that has been developed to support it is that almost none of these communication means, has become completely obsolete. We're still using mails, we're still using landline phones, And obviously, we do use messengers and so forth to communicate with each other. We are just more sophisticated with regard to what technology to use at what condition and for what purpose.
I graduated from Boston University in around 2019. Facebook had just acquired Oculus, and they soon released the Quest 1 virtual reality headset. And that was, at the time, the cutting edge headset on the market. The real innovation there was that the hardware no longer needs to be tethered to a computer. And I eventually found myself interning at the Glimpse Group after being part of the Boston University VR AR club. I was connected to the management at the Glimpse Group and started as a quality assurance intern. So I got to wear the Quest 1 headset and test out Fortel for our various clients. And it was really exciting for me just to be able to get my hands dirty with a real company and just see what it's like to have a real growing business in the immersive space. I was always interested in augmented reality with the Snapchat filters, and
I remember those.
and seeing things in 3D. And for me to work in an immersive space and an immersive headset was just a dream. So I've been at the Glimpse Group for almost 5 years, and
Nice.
it's really great to just grow with the company as well.
That's awesome. So it's looks like you are an early adopter in VR, which is really fantastic. And now that we have some context to your backgrounds, here's a question I ask all my guests, and feel free to jump in. How would you define visual storytelling from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'll start with that one. So visual storytelling to me is the art of using visual elements like videos, images, and infographics, as well as virtual and augmented reality to tell a story. And I always believe that the medium is the message. So the form of the message could be digital, print, or experiential, really dictates the way in which the message is perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Movies bring one core message to the viewer, but if you look at virtual reality, you could walk around a space. You could walk around a museum or a cultural
Definitely.
space, and the viewer is just able to be immersed in that story by being physically in the space.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen lots of examples that art museums actually taking people that are not physically visiting the space just to kind of experience it remotely. So that's a huge benefit for sure.
Yeah, I will add to what Jordan says that in storytelling is the art of getting you into a different dimension, okay? And that dimension builds a lot on our senses, whether it is visual, whether it is feelings, emotions, which are another dimension of getting you immersed into someone's story. And linking it to virtual reality, that technology that all of a sudden can give you 360 immersion into a space, whether you share the space with others or whether you are immersed by yourself, provides us a new capability to tell a story in an immersive way. So the word immersive is something that many people like to use, but virtual reality actually is the first time that this technology allows it. And that serves a lot to the storytelling art.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, us visual storytellers always, when we tell a story, even just on stage, we have, as humans, this capability to envision things vicariously through the storytellers. So typically our VR is our brain, our mental box to visualize, how the story take these wild turns. But with VR, you can actually curate the exact locations, the emotions, the colors. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a great context for my next question. And now that we understand a little bit about your perspective about visual storytelling, maybe you can talk a little bit about your core mission, objectives at Fortel Reality. Maybe discuss what are the typical use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe in line with Nokia connecting people, we at Fortel, we aspire to use the technology of virtual reality and in the near future also augmented reality and mixed reality to enhance human interaction. And, you know, it's a quite ambitious mission that we have. For various reasons, technology is associated in the past few years actually at bringing people apart rather than together.
Yeah.
So this is one challenge that we trying to show, that using that technology helps people to overcome the typical barriers to connect with each other. But at the same time, by enhancing human interaction, we're not saying that every human interaction is suitable for virtual reality. Actually, many clients that we work with or potential clients that come to us, we tell them, hey, for the problems that you are trying to solve and for the use case that you are tackling and focusing on, maybe virtual reality is not the best technology that solves this problem.
Interesting.
So under that mission, we identified 3 main use cases where virtual reality can add value.
Mm-hmm.
One is therapy and support.
Yep.
And when you think about it, for people to seek and receive therapy, there are many psychological, logistical, and emotional barriers. You don't want to expose yourself. You don't want to now go to, let's say, AA meetings, and you do not know who you're going to meet there, who you're going to need to share your personal experience with. Not to mention that the hurdle to get to a physical location, that sometimes, and the fear of stigma. And when we talk about virtual reality, the anonymity that you can get in virtual reality without revealing your own identity, but at the same time sharing the same space while you are far, remote, this is something perfect.
I never thought about it this way. This is actually a really important point, you know, that you basically use your avatar as a mask in a way, but you still can share very intimate details about a challenge.
100%. And we'll share later some examples from clients that work with our platform. And these are moving and touching stories to hear about. Another use case under that mission is the soft skills development. And one of the things that we tend to say is that we do not invent the practice. We want to add value to the practice. And when you think about soft skills development is something that is being worked on regardless of virtual reality. Role play simulation, for example. Imagine that you're a manager and there's an employee. Now you have a tough discussion about performance. Imagine that you are a parent and a kid and you want to simulate what it is to say no or to say yes to your kid. So role play simulation is not something new, but when you do it with others using virtual reality, all of a sudden you can immerse yourself in the environment that you want to be. If it is a boardroom or if it is a playground, with the flip of a button, you can change the environment, and then you can also build your own character by customizing your avatar, not to mention of other features that we have in the platform that support this use case. And the third one is experiential learning. Field trips. You want to see now the archaeological sites of Greece. You don't need to get on a plane and to be there. You can just explore and be there.
Exactly.
Not to mention that it might be even easier. We had a very interesting project, and I hope to have the chance to talk about it, that immerse people in archaeological sites in Israel. And you can explore these sites, you know, by looking and having the space and the time to do it, and not risking yourself by crossing the road and exploring.
No, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So these 3 main use cases, therapy and support, soft skills development, and experiential learning, are the ones that we see fit very well under this mission of enhancing human interaction. And of course, we're exploring more and more things that can fit that mission moving forward.
Awesome. So now I'm dying to actually see some 1 or 2 VR examples directly from your environment. So we're just going to put the VR headset and jump right into your environment.
That sounds good. Yeah, so let's put on our Quest 2 headsets and we'll meet you in Fort Tal.
Awesome. Let's do that. See you there.
Excellent. So in the short time we have today, we'll review some of the other multimedia features in Fort Tal. Just for an example, since we're in a 3D environment, I could spawn different content like a 3D flower. So this will appear for you in just a moment, and we can talk about some of the use cases for this flower. Since we focus on therapy and support, we have different clients who would use this as a prop, just to be mindful. You could breathe in the smell of the flower.
Right.
You could pass it around, because in
Yep.
in 3D, you're able to see not just the two dimensions of a zoom screen, for example, but be able to use the whole 3D environment there. All right.
It's incredible. I really like, the close-up is really amazing because you can actually see it from all angles, and I bet for training when you do maybe with the 3D engines, it's quite educational.
Yep.
Got it.
To focus a little bit more on the support groups, spawn this video here. All right. So now what you're seeing is just a highlight of some of the Foretell features here. We've got a whole bunch of
Were you a videographer?
avatars here, and I'll just get a little bit closer so I can increase that.
Hold their hands
So what
out.
you're looking at here is
If you have space.
our different environments, as well as some of the different trainings that take place in Foretell. We're able to upload different content, visit different
Yep.
environments, and in a moment we'll also go into a 360-degree video.
Yeah, so just looking at the video clip that you spawned a second ago, I was just kind of curious, when you have training sessions, what are the typical use cases for showing those video clips?
Yeah, so in addition to an overview video, our clients would spawn specific instructions, whether it's for an
I see.
exercise. Yeah, whether it's an exercise they're about to do with rules, or just specific instructions, and also different role-playing scenarios. So if we're setting up a role-play where we're both different backgrounds than what we actually are, we would be able to spawn the script and then complete the role-play that way. So we're here in the Zen Garden, and our clients like to use this to have a support group setting and a moment of Zen in their busy lives. So
That's incredible.
so we've worked with a hospital that just has headsets that are ready to go. So if nurses or any of their colleagues need a moment just to take a Zen environment, they would go into the VR headset and leave feeling recharged. In all of our environments, we have all the same media capabilities, and in a moment I'll take us to a 360-degree video, and this is a temple in Thailand. Are you ready?
Yep,
All right.
let's do it.
All right.
Oh, wow.
So we're back here, and I'll pan the observer camera around, and we see that we're able to have that same photorealistic view inside this computer-generated environment.
Interesting.
So I'll take us back to the Zen Garden now, and let's see. We can wrap up with using the ball game. So this ball game is meant as a icebreaker tool. So we could just toss it around, and the ball will come back to us.
see.
And here it is.
Huh.
So why don't you give it a toss?
Wow, this was amazing, Jordan. I really enjoyed the tour. The demo was unbelievable. I really liked, this room, especially with the music background that really sets you in the tone, in the mood, and 3D 360 video is amazing teleporting experience. So thank you so much for this fantastic tour.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us in Foretell.
So that was really amazing. I really like that executive lounge that you have where you were able to show that huge display with other examples, even avatars that are kind of pre-recorded that you can show what they did in the past. So I think, Jordan, that example really just go beyond the regular examples of just a bunch of people talking in a space.
And what you get in virtual reality is when we do that 3D recording, you get to see yourself from that third person point of view. So it's not like recording yourself on a 2D screen, but you really get to see your demeanor and how your hands are in that position. So instead of just recording yourself to watch yourself in 2D, you get the full picture in that 3D view.
Yeah, not to mention you can actually interact with objects like that ball, baseball you can throw. And so this is, again, another layer of interactivity that you often don't see. So absolutely. Let's talk about another topic that may sound like an oxymoron in a way. When you think about VR, you're obviously in a virtual environment, but we also like to say that you can create a high level of authenticity in those spaces. So how authenticity goes along with VR?
Yeah, well, you have that immersive nature that VR provides. And in Foretell, we give you an avatar. And that avatar, it may not look like you, but it could look how you feel that specific day. So in VR, there's this sense of embodiment where you embody the characteristics of that avatar. So we've worked with a couple clients, one being Yale, their gender program, where they would use the Foretell platform just as a safe space and a support group setting where they would just choose their avatar. They have a voice modulation where you can make your voice higher or lower. And then you just could be your true self. VR provides that avatar capability where it almost masks who you are in the moment and could reveal like who you actually are.
Yeah, no, and I think you're right, Jordan, because it's especially when you speak about personal therapy sessions. Again, that's probably the highest authenticity you can think of, where people kind of opening up their hearts and the most kind of extreme experiences. So definitely I can see that a great value add.
Yeah, I would add to that, Shlomi, when we're talking about authentic storytelling, I think that there are two things that maybe require a little bit to elaborate on. One is, what is the story that you want to tell? If it is your personal story, then let's think, what are the barriers for you to be authentic? Mm-hmm. We have a lot of, whether it is social conventions or habits, that prevents us from being very open about our own problems, difficulties, could be even the success stories that we have. We are fearful of judgment of the way that we look or of the way that we sound. Many people are really, really reluctant to put themselves in front of a camera. I mean, being camera shy. We are not sure how it's going to be perceived, whether we're saying the right things or the wrong thing, whether there are different stigmas. We talked about therapy and support, right? If I'm going to get some help, how people would look at that, let alone I'm trying to keep it secret. And one of the things that resonated with me many years ago, before I even stepped into the virtual reality realm, is tied to what Jordan mentioned, the representation as someone else. And the quote that I remember that I saw by an African tribe was that we dance with a mask, or they dance with a mask, to let the things that are already in them out, but not to be someone else. And there's a huge difference wearing a mask to be someone else, or wearing a mask in order to let the things that are buried in you for various reasons and to express them publicly. And this is what we try to do in Foretell. We create the environment. The environment can be very relaxing or can be very triggering, but at the same time shields the participants from the typical social barriers that prevents people from being authentic and open about themselves and about the story that they're trying to tell.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I really can relate to what you said about what people choose to tell. In my world, I call it the edited versus the unedited story. Most likely, we keep the unedited, with the sensitive details to ourselves, and we share the edited story with the world. So, yeah, for sure, this is an important aspect. Speaking about the great examples Jordan went through earlier, I was curious to get a glimpse backstage. And if you can talk a little bit about what is the process you go through with clients to develop those experiences?
Yeah. So what we develop is the platform and the tools and the features. We are not a marketing agency that is responsible for the storyboard and so forth. Although in certain cases, we work on a storyboard with the client, but usually what we try to do is to link between the story that the client want to tell or the story that they want their customers to tell and translate what they already do and what they are accustomed to do in a non-VR world and translate it to how our platform can be leveraged in order to take it to the next step. I gave the example of role-play simulation. You have a lot of corporate workshops where you try to simulate certain situations and you give trainee A certain role and trainee B another role and say, okay, imagine that you are, okay, now you don't need to imagine. You actually are placed in a boardroom, like I mentioned before, in another environment, okay? So how to leverage what we developed in our platform for the sequence that the client want to have with their users is very important. I can give you another example from therapy. If you want to have some physical activity at the beginning, just to get some energy out, and then switch to talk therapy, we have features where you can, play with a ball or even do some yoga exercises or stretching, and then take you to a quiet environment where people sit in a circle and share heart-to-heart their own story. So building this sequence with our client is the way that we see our participation in building the curriculum, or building the story narrative per the practice that our client is using.
I see. Yeah. So it sounds like you are playing the role of visual curators, I would say, that basically bring to life an existing practice that the business have offline, and just enriching it with VR built-in features.
Very much so. I mean, I tend to say that with people who are new to the medium of virtual reality, there is a barrier. I call it the imagination barrier, because sometimes you do not know what is the potential, what are the opportunities that new technology allows you to do. And our role is to help our clients overcome that imagination barrier by linking what we have in the platform and what they need to have for their own practice.
Right. You've been both close to 5 years working in this space. Can you kind of see a pattern of what are the core problems or type of stories clients bring up the most?
Yeah, so I could dive in a little bit. So in addition to the support group setting, VR really works great for things that are impossible, very expensive, or dangerous. So when we're not focusing on the support group setting, these are the types of things that work best for VR. And yeah, so in addition to now getting back to the support group setting, providing that safe space that's reliable and just a place that our clients could return on a regular basis, the key.
I see.
Yeah, and I'll add a couple points here. Going back to the 3 use cases: therapy and support, soft skills development, and experiential learning. The best things that the stories that fit in terms of the stories that our clients want to tell or want to practice in our platform are things that do require an element of immersiveness. Okay. I mean, Jordan touched a little bit. If you want to now practice something that in regular circumstances you cannot do easily, I don't know, a fire drill. Okay. You cannot set a place on fire in order to practice. Another thing, if we are talking about the therapy, if you want to bring your users, your patients, to a certain state, okay? Either it is a state of relaxation or a state of agitation. The immersiveness is something that shortens the time to get into this state. If someone has a fear of heights or fear of spiders, you can put a picture that now the user feels like they're on a hot air balloon, looking down and seeing, you know, what kind of emotions and feelings it triggers in them. In many ways, virtual reality is another step in what is called biofeedback, because of the visceral feeling that you can have just by putting yourself in this immersive environment. So I think that immersiveness is one thing. We talked about the anonymity, which is another thing. Playfulness. So playfulness just by this medium, the cartoonish avatars that you see even in my background, it adds some lightness to very heavy
you feel like you're in a video game.
Exactly. And removing judgment, stigma, fear of that also fits very well to this kind of stories and use cases.
Right, definitely, I can see that. I was actually experiencing this firsthand. You know, when I put the headset you guys sent, it was really like a teleporting experience. You've been working with clients for a while now. I bet you got some customer doubts or objections. So can you talk a little bit about what are the common misconceptions about VR for the three use cases you described?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people actually VR isn't for them, just because maybe they've had a previous experience with VR that made them feel sick or dizzy, or they know someone that tried VR and they didn't feel well after it. But the thing is, the quality of the software and the hardware has improved tremendously in the last 5 years. And there's also the fact that all VR isn't created equally. So at Fortel, we craft our experiences to make sure that they're comfortable and our users don't get sick. And we really just hold our clients' hands all the way into that deployment process.
I see.
Where we educate them about the VR, we make sure they have confidence going in, and make sure that this solution is great for them. So from a Fortel perspective, we help you from A to Z to make sure you have a great experience.
That's cool. So we talked earlier a little bit about what's the process you work through with clients to get them on board. And I'm kind of curious, after an engagement with a client, do you have any specific report, or how do you measure success after engaging a client in a VR experience?
Yeah, so the short answer to that is when a client wants to continue working with us, then it's definitely a success, right?
Right.
Not to mention if they are willing to tell the story to other potential clients, and word of mouth, especially for happy clients, is a great way to develop your business. But in a more empiric way, there are the things that we can measure. Sometimes there are things that our clients measure. We have several clients that conduct studies using our platform. And there are things that are more qualitative that we can collect from users and clients alike. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Yale Medical School uses our platforms for several use cases. I mentioned the cancer support group before. And there was a study that was published a few months ago with very encouraging results that around support group for cancer patients, while the retention before deploying our solution, i.e. in-person support groups, the attendance and the retention there was close to 0%. And all of a sudden, in a virtual reality, it jumped to more than 70%.
Oh, there you go.
This is a huge empiric data that shows that success. We have another group at Yale Medical School that works with teens and young adults who suffer from diabetes. And there they ask the participants what is the most favorite features that they liked in our experience. And one of the features was 3D drawing that got to the highest score. So the creative expression in 3 dimensions while you are sharing the same virtual space while remote from each other, and being able to draw in 3 dimensions, not only in 2D, got to the highest score in terms of favorable feature. And when it comes to the qualitative aspects, we have testimonials of users of our clients, because we are a B2B operation, that describe very emotionally how they felt in opening up and sharing openly their personal stories. And that for us is the best compliment ever, that we actually helped breaking the barrier of sharing something in a safe space without the barriers that I mentioned before, leveraging the features and tools that we actually provide in Foretell Reality.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I think the fact that obviously, direct criteria from actually using exciting features within the space and to actual business results afterwards, as you said, more traction in a therapy session. These are all great examples of how you can measure success. I want to fast forward and maybe call it zoom out in your VR lingo and take a wider view to the future. And where do you see VR is headed? 2 years ago, if you all remember, we had this metaverse vision. So what are your thoughts about future?
Yeah, so VR has come a long way, and I think it still has a long way to go. I've seen that Apple has entered the ecosystem with their Vision Pro, and their approach is what they label as spatial computing. So there's a combination of a real world presence and that virtual presence. But to focus a little bit more on VR and VR environments, I think we could see a lot of different applications for AI. So one, in the creation of these VR environments, in the design process, and actually creating the 3D environments, and also having AI avatar agents in there. So when you get an environment, it might come with an AI assistant who could maybe record notes or create a mini 3D object or create a summary of some different presentations for you. So in this environment, you have an assistant by your side, or AI avatar could be like an attribute of the environment. So let's just say if you're in VR and there's a swimming pool, there could be an AI avatar lifeguard or an avatar that pops up and reminds you to be respectful of the rules in the support group.
I see. Yeah. And I know that I think Google Meet has this new feature that I think it's called Represent Me. Basically, you can send an AI presence on your behalf, share what you wanted to deliver, and just capture notes. So yeah, the convergence of AI and VR, I think it's insane for sure. This has been great, amazing information. And just to kind of wrap it up for my audience, what would you say be your top 3 tips for brands that really want to use VR to tell more authentic stories, either for internal or external audiences?
Yeah, I would say, one, to know your audience. So when you're crafting the curriculum in VR or creating the experience itself, know who's going to use it and benefit from it. So you can tailor the UI screens and the design for those people. Next, choose your target device. So some people enjoy doing VR from a 2D screen, or what we recommend mostly the MetaQuest 2, 3, or Pro headsets. And then create something memorable. So make sure that the end result has a lasting effect and is something that the users would walk away with a positive experience.
Yeah, because then they become your kind of messengers and spread the word on your behalf, kind of an extension of your marketing team, if you will.
I would I would add an example that brings all the elements that Jordan mentioned quite nicely. One of our clients is a dating coach, and she works with her clients to practice the art, if you will, or the failure of first date. We know that there are some awkward elements when two people coming together and need to tell each other their story, but you still check each other and you still, contemplate how much you want to share.
Right.
And, it is in an immersive environment because it is in the physical space. You meet for coffee or you meet for dinner or for a drink. So, knowing your audience, knowing the problem, knowing to simulate the situation that they need to be in. And in this case, dating, you can use a lot of branding as well, right? Whether it is the vodka drink that you now select or some other elements around you, that helps you to use this medium for the practice with your audience. So you help them to tell the story. Yep. You do create the environment that is conducive for the situation that you want to have. And you use the elements that virtual reality allows that otherwise are very hard to do. And by the way, nobody goes with you on a first date. Here, there's an opportunity for you to see how you behave on a first date and learn from it, whether it is with a guide or whether it is just to reflect by watching yourself after that in the recording.
No, for sure. No, that's a great example. Thanks for sharing, Dror. So first of all, Jordan, Dror, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Lots of insights for marketers, brands that wish to take the first step or even the second step if they already had some exposure into VR. All right. So just before we go, if people have some questions for you, how can they reach out?
Thank you, Shlomi. You can reach out at info@foretellreality.com or visit our website at foretellreality.com.
All right. So thank you so much. And for all of you watching or tuning in, I'll see you in the next episode of the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Shlomi. Great to be here.
Visual Storytelling Today is recorded in Miami, Florida. The show is published exclusively by Visual Storytelling Institute. Learn more at visualstorytell.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on the iTunes Store. Until next time, don't let your big story wait to be told.